few months ago, I showed you how to do a really simple urban sketch, and I did it outside. This is our neighbour's house, and I fully intended to do our house, which is joined on here. And of course, months went by and I didn't. So now it's tipping down with rain. It's far too cold to be outside. So I took this photo when it was a little bit more sunny, and I thought I would finally get round on the last day of the year actually drawing our house. So you can just about see a Christmas wreath there. I'm going to use my little moleskin sketchbook again. So last time I did this, someone criticised me for using a moleskin sketchbook because they said that was far too expensive for beginners. Well, actually my son gave this to me last Christmas, and so I've been using it. You can of course use any drawing paper. If you're going to put some watercolour on top, it does need to be able to withstand a little bit of wash, but otherwise just use what you've got. I'm going to use this rollerball pen. It's from Uniball. I thought it was pretty realistic that maybe you've got a small sketchbook, you've got a single pen. I've got a water brush here. I've got some watercolours if we want to put colour on, and that's all you need to do to get started. But when you are, if you're sitting in front of something like this and you're starting, you do need to work out what you're going to put in and what you're going to put out and what you're going to emphasise. So I'm going to leave out our gatepost because, well, it just gets in the way. I'll probably leave out the telephone wires and things. They don't really add much to the scene. This is the shadow of our next door neighbour's house. So the sun is coming from here. It was quite late in the afternoon. The sun was quite low. And, you know, there's his satellite dish and his chimney. I just think that is confusing because you'll be thinking, well, where does that shadow come from? So I'm leaving that out. Just taking a few seconds to look at the scene is never a bad thing. We've got pots full of rather dead plants because this is taken in December, but maybe some of those plants will have a bit more greenery in them if I need to jazz it up. You know, our house isn't a pretty house. It's obviously been added to. Everyone who's lived here has added another bit onto it. We've added a bit round the back. So I'd like to make it friendly and happy because I love our home. I'm going to work right across the fold. This is an A5 sketchbook, and I'm going to go straight in with pen because when you're sketching, you never know when it's going to rain, when someone's going to park in front of you. So I am just going to start right in the middle with that sort of canopy, and I'm going to come across. I can see there's a nice bit of wood or something there, keeping it up. And I'm just holding the pen fairly loosely until I get the hang of what's going on. Actually, it's so much more forgiving than you might think. So I'm going to separate off next door. And that's sort of where it starts. I'm going to come up here and I'm sort of following the lines and seeing where they go. I might do a little bit more sort of continuous line to get a bit of a flow to it as I warm up. So continuous line is simply where you keep the pen on the paper. So I'm not being terribly strict about this, but do you know I said that I wanted it to be jolly and happy, so I better make it jolly and happy. So I do like just working straight across the fold. I think it is just a fun way of working. Now, as I'm looking here, I'm noticing that the back side of the house is a lot lower than the front, so that's fine. There's a bit coming down here. I'm noticing that that's pretty much on the fold. So we've got a bit of that canopy coming over. There's a triangle here. This is all pretty much in a line, even though in reality, this is an angle here. and this is an angle there, but just because of how I've taken the photo, it doesn't really show up. So we're going to come down there, and then we've got the final sort of sticky out bit here. Sorry, I know sticky out bit isn't a very good architectural term, but there you go. It's worth, you can look and say, well, where do things line up? So, you know, this back line is just a bit behind there, and that just helps you measure things right. But equally well, as long as it doesn't look as if the house is going to fall down, let's see there, it's fine. And then we're going to have to come in here. We've got the corner of the house. There's a bit in there. Just getting a few angles correct, or correct enough. That goes back to there, comes forward to there. This comes out, back, up. We've got the fence here, and we've got the gist of the house in. It's always nice to put a few details in that you start to look and see. So above each window, we've got the lintel, we've got sash windows here, bit of a burglar alarm there, windowsill here. This is actually a bit longer than you might think. That's keeping it all propped up. I just work my way round the drawing, getting some details in and just looking at what's going on. Not overworking anything. So if I have to stop at this point, I've got the gist in of things and I could always carry on. But there's no point having one perfect window and having to stop and not being sure what else is going on. So let's get those in. Next door's windows. So these houses are, they were built in the 1890s. So typical Victorian pair of cottages that over the years have been added to, built, extended, and so forth. The nicest thing about our house is actually the trees behind it, I think, so I'd really like to get those in, because we've got really tall, sort of like 90-foot trees behind the house, which I love, though when it's a windy day it's sometimes a little worrying and you sort of listen and think, is any of that going to come down? So we've got the door here, and again you can just see where things connect to help you get things in the right place. And of course I've got my Christmas wreath there. We've got a front step that actually comes out to about here. You can't see it because the post is in the way. It's got lots of wellies and walking boots and things on it, and lumps of wood and stuff for the fire. So let's get those in. I'm following the perspective, so I like the top of the window will be going up, whereas the bottom of the window won't be at quite the same angle. So let's just be aware of that. Get those in, and then we've got our sort of little extensiony bit here. Again, just being aware of those angles. Sort of light here, which is important. This is the electricity box here. It's a bit of pipe, which is rather ugly. Oops, that needs to go over the top, but rather important for making our central heating work. There's more lights and things here. And I think I would like to get some of the planters and stuff in because they soften the front, and in the summer these are all full of geraniums and stuff. This big pot here has got a little tree in it. So our house is called Laburnum Cottages, and we really thought we should have a laburnum tree. So I finally bought one for my husband last year, and it's just in this little pot. It's very tiny at the moment. There's some balls and ornaments and other bits that just soften the front. So if I needed to, I could stop at this point because that's the shape of the house. Not a lot more to be said, really. But I've got time, so I can carry on. So I might go around and just put in a bit more detail, whether it's like the flashings above the roof here, the barge boards at the end, these sort of boards. I've got some guttering here that's going down to there. Might be good to do. There's, of course, the name of the house. I've made this a bit wide. So I'll put the house name in. And all our front drive is gravel, so we might want to put some of that in. This is a fence between us and the neighbours. What do they say? Good fences make good neighbours. We're lucky that we've got lovely neighbours. So around the bottom of the oldest bit of the house. So this bit is the original sort of Victorian bit. Sort of dark there. Joins onto the step. And then this is the sort of modern extension. And because I do love my trees, perhaps I should put those behind just to indicate big trees that sort of go up here behind. Obviously it's winter and there's no leaves on them. They've all blown down a long time ago. Slightly concerned about this tree, that we can just see all the ivy on it here, because I think that ivy is pulling it over. If it falls over, it will hit my studio that I'm currently sitting in. So kind of hoping that it doesn't. I can't cut it down because it's on the land behind our house. It's not our tree. And they say that it's safe. So if it squashes me, I shall be most upset. An old TV aerial here. Say satellite dish there. A bit more gravel here. Why don't we get some colour on? A water brush here. They're so useful. So the water's in the handle, and you just squeeze it and then you can pick up colour. So our house is this pale blue, which I have to say I do like. When we painted it, it was a bit of a surprise because in the pot it looked a lot paler, and then we put it on and it was like, oh, oh, that's quite blue, but actually it's not as dark as you think. So I'm just going to put some colour through, not being too upset about where it goes. A little bit of kitchen towel can be useful for getting rid. I'm going to get some yellow onto this sunny wall. Let's grab some yellow onto here as well. And then something a bit darker onto here. Just letting the colours have a bit of a play and mingle on the paper, because what I'm trying to do, as I said, is get a happy rendition of our house, because I think our house is a happy place. Just bring some of that green through. Might be nice to have a few splatters of all the colours into the gravel area. Now, do I want some blue sky? Because it was, oh dear, that's not nice. It's a really blue sky day. Now that looks a bit stormy, but maybe that's not a bad thing for a winter's day. And then I'm going to pick up some muddy, dirty water from there, from my palette. Just come through. Let's bung a bit of blue in the windows to tie the two sides together. Right, now we need to let that dry and take it from there. So this is pretty much dry, and now we just need to decide what we're going to do to sharpen things up and bring in a little bit more detail. And really, that's entirely up to you. I'm just swapping to a little fine liner. So that rollerball pen I've got, I guess, would be about 0.5. And because it's a rollerball, it's, well, that's the size it is. I just think it's a bit thick for this sort of size of drawing. So I'm changing to a fine liner that's a bit, well, it's a 0.2, as I say. And I want to just neaten things up, or not neaten things up, but crisp things up where maybe things were gone astray, or just to add a little bit more detail in places. I think it might be quite nice to put in a few bricks on this bit, because this half of the house is brick built, whereas the original bit isn't. So just an indication of a bit of brick might not be a bad idea. They don't have to be real brick size, because actually bricks would be a lot smaller than this, and I'm certainly not putting them all in. That was our water butt here. Quite like it just because that gives a little height across that wall. These are planters that are going to have lots of tulips in come the spring, I hope. I wish I'd done these a little bit more of a jaunty angle on the roof line, because I think that gives a friendly feel to the house. So I'm just putting ridge tiles in. Don't know if you can hear, it's really tipping down with rain. So if it's picking up that rain, you will understand why I'm working from a photo rather than outside. So let's get a bit more tree action going in here. So I think that sort of shows off the roof line quite nicely. Windowsills, surrounds. Could put in a little bit of hatching to where the light's catching the windows, because on a building, I have to say, I always think that the windows are like the eyes. In a human portrait or an animal portrait, you always look at the window, sorry, the eyes first, don't you? Because that's what interests us, and I think windows sort of have the same function in a house. So this is a wooden planter. Let's get some action going on there. Have some foliage. I haven't put my little laburnum tree in here. There we go. It's got no leaves on at the moment. And there's some plants and things in here. Hopefully it will all be pretty again come the spring. Never got round to putting the winter pansies in. Leaving some of that out. This is our sort of Christmas holly wreath. Might be quite fun to put the ribbon in there as a little splash of colour. This is wood along here before we go into the tiles. Just indicate those. Make sure they follow the perspective there. Show that is brick. And these little triangles between the supports of the porch are important. So I'll get those in. Something coming out here, which actually is a bit of the heating system. Doesn't seem overly important to me. These are a bit further away, so won't need much detail. Just a little bit of tile there. And then I am going to put an awful lot more of this gravel in, only because it's sort of a distinguishing feature of our house is our gravel drive, because all the stones end up in the road or in the house, really. You get picked up on your shoes and picked up on the car tyres and things, so... I just want to put a few bricks up here, because brick chimney. It's important. And I don't think I need to do an awful lot more than this. There is an option if you want to, and you've got something like this. If you've got any sort of brush pens, these are dual tip brush pens, just in different shades of grey. One end is a bullet point, the other is a brush point. And if you're doing some urban sketching, they can be a really good way of adding a bit of tone. So that lovely shadow that we identified at the beginning, I haven't really put in, and the shadow under the porch here, where to show that really is an overhang, I haven't really put in. So if I want to, I can use the brush end of these grey pens just to add very quick amount of shadow without adding any extra water to my drawing and making it any wetter, and this paper not wanting to take any extra sort of dampness. I can put shadows under those sills and things like that. You don't need to, it's entirely up to you, so don't worry if you haven't got anything like that. But I just wanted to show you that you can put a little bit of form in very quickly using these sorts of pens. Just indicate a few bricks or something like that if I wanted to. Might be quite nice for a bit more of my gravel that I was rather fond of. Obviously it's worth thinking which way the light's coming from and hitting the building. They are very good for putting in windows as well. Just a single stroke can darken down a window and put a bit of life and light into it. What you can do, say we wanted to make the roof stand out a bit, you can just sort of darken down behind, something like that, and that will just pop the house forward a bit, should you wish to. Very final thing I would like to do, just put that little splash of red there for my holly wreath. Slightly brighter green on some of this foliage. It looks a bit dull. It's sunnier than the yellow I use, so I might just pull that over there just for a bit of fun. That's cheered it all up a bit. Wasn't sure it was quite the happy place that I was hoping it would be. Well, there you go. A very quick sketch of a happy house, showing how you can do it in simply a pen and a little bit of colour, or if you want to use those double tip brush pens, you can then add a little bit of form too.